In the meantime, to Nicole's point, these phone carriers, they're the big winners so far in all of this. So not surprisingly now, if you had a separate plan to that little watch, of course, it's going to sell you capabilities. Well, you can do the math on this. It exponentially gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Margaret Watcher, Fox News contributor Scott Martin, USA Today tech analyst Jennifer Jolly. Jennifer, to you, how big a deal is that to the carriers? They had a chance, and if you had a chance to factor that in, what are we talking about?
We're talking an average of another $10 a month if you upgrade to that watch that you can use as your own phone on your wrist. We're also talking about that new price point for that new fancy phone, that iPhone 10, the luxury phone. So that gives them a lot more room to play with to really upsell people in terms of that $1,000 to $1,200 entry point for a phone. So it's a big win for the carriers, and now they'll all start really competing for a much higher end business as well.
You know, Scott, I'm wondering for Apple, I mean, so much it could benefit all these other ancillary players, including those that are behind the OLED screens and bezels and stuff that I had no idea what they mean even now as I ask you this question. But I do know that the iPhone 10 itself, you can't even order it until the end of October. You can't even get it, best case scenario, until early November. That doesn't jibe with prior Apple announcements, including these latest wave yesterday, where most of the stuff you can start ordering as soon as Friday. What's going on here? Is that telegraphing problems?
Well, it's interesting, Neil. It may be telegraphing some production issues and or just the delays that we've seen, but I'll tell you what's else interesting. They're going to get it in by the holiday shopping season, which is good. It's also got a little bit of allure to it, too, doesn't it? It's like, hey, here's this great thing, but, oh, by the way, you can't have it yet. So that's also adding to a little bit of, say, the consumer angst with respect to getting this phone. But I think we can agree, you know, it's like Jennifer said, you know, this is about touching the consumer and allowing these carriers to go out and say, hey, you want this new iPhone? Great, but maybe you want this 50 gigabyte data plan, which I know sounds ridiculous, but we're getting there with respect to how well these phones can do on apps and everything else. So it's a touch point with the customer where they can upsell you on other devices, other gigs that you may want to have, and therefore that's going to lead to more revenue for a lot of these carriers.
Jennifer, on the watch thing, I think it's sort of like the sleeper announcement here, but I think it could have significant implications going forward. Now, I know Apple is saying it's the best-selling watch, its watch is the best-selling on Earth, but does it change things when it's independent, when it's not tied to a phone, when it can do literally a lot of the Dick Tracy stuff that it was first heralded to do?
It does change the game in terms of the Apple Watch. I mean, this watch that I have now, the Watch 2 series, is the best smartwatch and fitness watch that I've ever tested personally. So now you take that and you make it operate with your same phone number by itself without having to have your smartphone around. That means I can run on a, go for a run, and all I have to have is this. It streams thousands, tens of thousands of songs. I can take and make phone calls off of it without that other smartphone anywhere around. Now, Samsung's Best Watch does that, but it has to work with a different phone number. So this is a big step and a big push forward into a better smartwatch. And just to go back to that production issue for a second, the biggest production issue was in terms of the supplier, a Vietnam supplier that makes Samsung, or it's an affiliate with Samsung's OLED displays, and they were trying to do what Samsung did and make that OLED display to still have a fingerprint scanner, a touch scanner. They couldn't do that, so they scrapped that touch ID, and they're now really pushing that Face ID. So that's going to be a big test. We need a lot of reliability. We need that to actually work when that phone comes out. But that's still really a big question mark for many of us.
You know, Scott, let's take it as a given that they are going to sell a lot of these phones and other gadgets this Christmas season. Do you think it hurts other retailers? Because whatever you buy for money, I mean, there's a limit how much, the American consumer can shell out, that it might be a very successful Christmas season for Apple, but it might not be for Macy's or JCPenney or Nordstrom, or, you know what I mean? What do you think?
Yeah, well, a lot of those retailers you mentioned have been in the doldrums and probably will continue to do so. But I'll tell you what's interesting, Neil. Let's see, this holiday shopping season versus prior, at least in the last few years, the economy's in better shape. I feel like there's a lot of economic hope out there. So if you're going out and getting that iPhone 8 or maybe the iPhone 10, if you're so adventurous, you're probably going to spend some other monies because you feel better as a consumer. And that's even aside from the fact that Apple's doing amazing things with the poop emoji now. So there's a lot of reasons to go out and shop this holiday shopping season.
I'm glad you went there. All right, guys.
Somebody had to.
Thank you very, very much. And, processed meats and cheeses, they're always the gift that keeps giving, regardless, guys, just as a little side note. All right.